I'm just going through the jury instructions that are going to be given by the judge when the trial starts tomorrow. This will happen before opening statements because I just wanted to see what the timing was going to be that we could start actually getting to testimony. And it looks like there's nearly 68 pages of jury instructions, but a couple of them stood out to me. And what it is regarding is the actual definition of the charges that Dale Warner is facing, specifically first degree premeditated murder and second degree murder. So I don't know if you realize, but this is the jury, the verdict form here. And basically it states what possible verdicts that the jury can return. I've watched trials where this part is very confusing for jurors, where they send questions back to the judge because they don't know how to fill out the verdict slip. So this is the verdict form, and you can see as to count 1, open murder involving the death of Deanne Warner, you can return only one verdict on this count. So you get not guilty, which is pretty clear, and then guilty of first degree premeditated murder and guilty of the lesser offense of second degree murder. And then there's count 2, tampering with evidence, very easy, not guilty, guilty. So to me, that's a pretty easy to figure out jury slip, but I want to get into what needs to be proven by the prosecution when it comes to these charges: first degree murder, premeditated murder, and second degree murder. So it says the defendant, and this is being read to the jury, the defendant is charged with the crime of first degree premeditated murder. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that the defendant caused the death of Deanne Warner. That is, that Deanne Warner died as a result of blunt force trauma and or strangulation. Second, that the defendant intended to kill Deanne Warner. Third, that this intent to kill was premeditated, that is, thought out beforehand. Fourth, that the killing was deliberate, which means that the defendant considered the pros and cons of the killing and thought about and chose his actions before he did it. There must have been a real and substantial reflection for long enough to give a reasonable person a chance to think twice about the intent to kill. The law does not say how much time is needed. It is for you to decide if enough time passed under the circumstances of this case. The killing cannot be the result of a sudden impulse without thought or reflection. So, if a juror is not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that Dale Warner premeditated this, then first degree murder would be off the table. If a juror believes that this was an attack that was sparked by anger, then it would not be first degree premeditated murder, and they would instead perhaps check this second degree murder box. So looking at second degree murder, you may also consider the lesser charge of second degree murder. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that the defendant caused the death of Deanne Warner. That is, that Deanne Warner died as a result of blunt force trauma and or strangulation. So nothing different yet. Second, that the defendant had one of these 3 states of mind. He intended to kill, or he intended to do great bodily harm to Deanne Warner, or he knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or such harm would be the likely result of his actions. So those will be read to the jury before they are to consider those. And then there's, of course, the tampering with evidence stuff. But I just wanted to share that with you because I don't think you guys have seen the verdict form yet or heard any of the instructions.